and went to the sale rack and saw this marvelous, beautiful blue wool dress, but absolutely refused to take it off the rack because I'm not sure I'm going to be alive next fall, and yet, but I did buy something in for, you know, like slacks for immediate. And that's what it's all about. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because to do what comes naturally, what you love to do, is the way that you face tremendous problems, if it is a problem. I'm not sure what to call it. So while I'm saying yes, I believe that I have a lot more time than the doctors have been willing to give me, I also am making myself constantly believe that maybe their prognosis is right. And so it's that ambivalence. I'm thinking, well, next year, you know, is an election year, and I'm going to run, and then all of a sudden reality, you know, hey, who are you kidding? You may not be here to run.
Basically.
So it's that, particularly being a woman at age 53, to have, you know, had, you know, career, let me put it in order, well, career before I was married, and then wifehood, motherhood, and then career, and then political career, which has to be the most exciting thing that has happened to me, you know, in my life, to be mayor of this community. Now, in the, you know, on the total perspective of the whole world, it doesn't amount to a, you know, to much at all, and but in the perspective of East Brunswick, in the perspective of my life, it amounts to a lot. And it is so great for me to accept the fact that I'm supposed to be ill and, in fact, may be dying, because most of the time I feel really great. And so that makes it even harder to be realistic about this, I think. When the doctor said, well, Mrs. Walling, or Jean, I can't really recall that, we did find a tumor, and my question was it malignant? And he said yes, and I said, where? And he said, in the pancreas. My first feeling was tremendous disappointment and sadness, and because very shortly thereafter the family was all there, and they started coming in one by one, and the one thing that kept echoing, and the nurse kept saying, and also the doctor, but my nurse, who was absolutely marvelous, kept saying, but you have some time. You know, you're so lucky you have some time. And that's when my heart went down to my feet, because I figured I'm never going to walk out of here. And my next question, as I said to him, was, am I going to get out of here? And he said, oh, yes. And then I felt somewhat calm. Early on, and I feel it was then, I said, look, kids, you know, I could be killed in an automobile accident, or I could have dropped dead of a heart attack. And I feel that is much worse because you don't have the time. And so our theme sort of became a gift of time. We've got a gift of time. And don't start looking for the Holy Grail, because, you know, I literally could spend every day saying, oh, boy, what shall I do today? I ought to be doing something dramatic, or I ought to be doing something, you know, uplifting. And, you know, I'm doing what I want to do. And that to me is important, because I'm doing it with such a heightened sense of thanksgiving. I'm delighted. It sounds like an excellent program. I appreciate their thoughtfulness, and I will be delighted to have two of our staff members.
Total commitment to the young people of East Brunswick is, I think, can be matched by no other person in this township.
I got to do that, right?
Yeah, you have to evaluate us. She taught them. She worked on their behalf in PTAs. She opened her home to them. There have been many instances where children who have run away from home have gone straight to Jean's house, and she had hoped to provide East Brunswick as a place for all people to live, young married, retired people, blacks, poor, a place that could be home for anybody that wanted to settle here. She said to me, if for any reason the operation doesn't turn out well, and I have cancer, can you handle it? And she told me at that time she was making that request of maybe 3 or 4 people. And I said to her, yes, Jean, I can handle it. because you're my friend and I love you. And I'm handling it.
And I remember the next morning after she was elected, she came over to my study and we sat and we talked. And I was absolutely amazed at how she had fingered every person. I mean, she really knew which ones to trust and which ones not to trust. And I remember coming into work, and I came in and I said to the executive editor, oh boy, have we got a mayor. Have we got a mayor.
We have been attacked in another zoning suit by people who want to put in townhouses in an area that restricts it, the development simply to single-family homes. Jean's running was a protest against the business-as-usual politics that I think most suburban towns have in New Jersey. My wife would come home raving about this Jean Walling person. I love her dearly now. I must admit, at first, I didn't know why they were raving. She wasn't a great speaker. And my wife kept telling me, don't worry, she'll grow on you. And she was right. And she has appointed women to boards who 2 years ago would have perhaps been baking brownies at home for some kid groups. And they're now sitting here and telling the developers what they can put in. People until now have been afraid to use the word cancer in mixed company. It was something you talked about as C or CA or the big C or some other euphemism. And I think what she has done is taken the horror right out of that word. She's neutralized it. It's just another word in the English language.
We're going to trade off there, okay?
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Bruce. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Good one. Okay.
Many times you didn't see Jean because she was always out pushing for the better of the township. Back 2 years ago, I had a stroke, and the mayor took time to come out and visit me, and the first words out of her mouth was, take it easy. She tells me to take it easy, right? But a simple reason, she says I work too hard. And you see her sick like this. It bothers me.
Well, she does seek advice on police matters from the Director of Public Safety, Frank Pash.
Kind of bad. We had 3 armed holdups. We solved 1 of 3.
When she first took office, she surprised most of us. She came to our shift meetings, and she showed up for each one. Got up early enough in the morning to get the day shift, and came in for afternoon, and she came in for the midnight shift muster to greet the men, pretty much lay out what she intended to do with the township. Partly because of being a woman, we expected a more liberal attitude. Can't get around it. She's a woman born that way, but she's also a good mayor, I believe.
It's hard to pigeonhole her, conservative, liberal. But the police were afraid. They really were. But I think she demonstrated that she's a wise lady, and she knows what's best for the community, and that doesn't necessarily have to do anything with labels. And it was a miraculous win that she won the community, I believe, by somewhere over 1,000 votes, or around 1,000 votes, and President Nixon carried it by about 4,500 votes. So she turned around a tremendous number of voters in this community in that election. It's a real tribute to her as a person. And given the fact that her running mates lost narrowly, she almost pulled them in with her. But she won on the strength of Jean Walling. 16 years of giving to the community is what won for her. Our feeling is, my feeling and my reflection with her is not, how serious her illness is, but how we can together, marshal our strength to overcome the thing.
All right, depending upon the press of time, okay?
Fine.
I promise not to sell this house.
Okay, well, I'll see you when I get back, all right? Goodbye. I'm going out for another kind of treatment out on the West Coast, and I'll be gone for 3 weeks. It's a vitamin therapy treatment, and I'm sort of hedging all my bets. I've had the chemotherapy, and I've reacted very favorably to that. The chemotherapy is not a permanent solution, and I think that we've talked it among the family, and we've talked to some very close friends who are in the medical profession who have said, you really don't have anything to lose, and you might have something to gain.
We had a dear friend whose wife had cancer of the pancreas 15 years ago, and at that time it was almost like the word leprosy. They sort of hid this lady away, and no one saw her, and it was a kind of a frightening thing. And really the only memory that Jean has of cancer of the pancreas is
the fact that she was just tucked off in the hospital and nobody ever saw her, and we never saw her again.
Initially, I was told that Jean had 2 to 3 weeks to live, and I certainly was a basket case. I went to 3 mental institutions, but they didn't have a bed large enough for me, so I stayed home. The kids got me drunk, which was the most helpful thing in all of this, so far as that's concerned. Well, then when I learned that Jean was supposed to have 2 to 3 months, it seemed like, hallelujah, isn't that fabulous? What a gift of time 2 to 3 months is.
As soon as I came into the place, into the gym, they said, Johnny, as soon as you're done with the game, take your shower and let's split, let's get out of here. And right away I sensed that something was wrong. Because usually they wouldn't really give a damn about what I was going to do after the game. So we got in the car, and Peter spoke, and he just said, Jean is pretty ill. And at first I couldn't exactly comprehend what he was saying, and then he told me more in detail how they discovered cancer, and right away I said, wow, cancer, it's pretty serious. And at first I didn't know what to think. The past days after that, I thought to myself, why has it got to be me? Why has it got to be our family?
We cried in the hospital, but we haven't cried since, and I'm sure we may have a few tears tomorrow morning. But we've done a fantastic job of not crying, and I'm not sure that that's such a great idea either. So
for me, there's a really big duality in the whole situation. There's always the awareness of what's going on, but I've kind of pushed it to the back of my mind consciously, so that I try not to dwell on it all the time. And sometimes it comes out and it hits me, but
I said, the doctors made a mistake, something like this. But then I knew they wouldn't say something so serious unless it was true. And I just thought to myself, okay, it's happened, and now let's make whatever, is to make, let's make the best out of it.
I think gestures are as important, if not more so, than words at a time like this, And I found that to be true, because when my very close friends came in, it was very hard to talk, but there was a touching and a clasping and a feeling that was solace to both of us at that particular time. And the same with my family. Again, most of the time we forget about it. Forget that it's sort of hanging over our heads, because you live from minute to minute and day to day. And, we're no different from any other family. Everybody's doing his own thing, except we're doing it a little more carefully and a little more slowly, I think, and not with such abandon that you do. Our bed is near the window, and I always put the shade up so I can see the sky and what kind of a day it is, because our apple tree's right outside of our bedroom. And regardless of the kind of day, I find myself saying, which I've never said before in my life, thank you, Lord, or thank God for this day. They didn't tell me then, nor did they tell me even when I left the hospital, that the spread was quite extensive throughout the abdomen. But they did keep emphasizing that the liver was not involved, which is a very positive kind of way, and I have to be thankful to them for that. And then my nurse said a very good thing. She said, well, you ought to start setting some target dates for yourself. So I said, okay, first target date is Richard's graduation. Our youngest will be graduating from high school. Second target date is the birth of our grandchild. And Michael, our oldest son, keeps saying the birth of our grandson, but I'm saying grandchild. And then the third is maybe seeing John play football this fall, because he's going to be on the team at Rutgers. And the fourth is Christmas Eve and Christmas. And if we make it to then, we'll make it forever. So those are, and I feel being mayor has a certain responsibility to the people, that you are, they're very much part of you. And so we discussed the necessity, or the desirability of allowing a lot of people to be able to express their grief. And so the arrangements are, for a viewing, 1 day, not 3 days, because I think that is a horrendous burden on the family. But, viewing for 1 day, and then a public kind of funeral. And I think that that's fine. I have no problem with that. And we will have an open casket for that one viewing day, which I have objected to strenuously. Good luck, and we're pulling for you. And I said, well, I'll see you in 3 weeks. And then I had to verbalize a little bit, which is very much, there's a possibility I might not see them in 3 weeks. I'm not sure how well this treatment is going to work, and the prognosis, as I told you the other day, was from 3 weeks to 3 months, insofar as the doctors in New York are concerned. And all of a sudden I'm approaching the 3 months, and while I'm feeling great, and I'm so positive, you know, that old ambivalence is coming in, I couldn't help. My emotions are riding very close to the surface. Okay, let me say that today. And it's going to be a little bit rough tomorrow, but we'll manage. Because I am convinced that I've got an awful lot going for me, not the least of which, as I've said in sort of a joking way, but I'm not joking about it, that I've got the most prayed-for soul, I think, in the history of the country. I'm being prayed, my soul is being prayed for in perpetuity by a number of very doctors. I view it as an adventure, you know, at last I'm going to find out what it's all about. And I guess my comment that I said, and I kid about it, my only regret is I'm not going to be able to telegraph it back to say, hey, you guys, you know, it's really great. you know, this is what to expect.
No, I think we go right about here. Is that not right?
Big John back there?
Bye-bye.
See you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, I may come out next week. Yeah, me too.
You know, the supporting actors in all this are the ones who are making it come off. By supporting actors, I mean the people who are so close to me and the community.
Nikki? Johnny? Come? Goodbye, hon. Thanks for everything. Okay? Yeah. Okay, will do.
Fortunately, I'm not going to be alone because my brother will be accompanying me and be with me for a few days, and Don is coming out for at least a week, and then a very close friend and her little daughter will be there for the last week. The sunshine and the diet and the therapy are going to work in my favor, hopefully. And I get so much of this, oh, you're so brave. Well, there's no bravery involved. It's just, it's really a realistic acceptance of the facts of life. And one of the most realistic facts of life is death. And once you get by that, then you just grab onto every day that you get with a tremendous sense of gratitude.
And the room fire 14, 15, 16.
The fact that there are so many people here who really have the same indictment that I am facing, that is death within weeks or months, that is not a depressing thought because there is a camaraderie and, again, a humanness. I think people are at their human best when they are with other people who are more or less in the same boat. There is no known cure to cancer. And I think everyone realizes that, but there is a hope. You know, all of this attitude of mine is very easy to maintain as long as it's reinforced by people, as long as I can pick up the phone as I could in the hospital, or reach out as I can at home, or talk with my friends and talk with my associates. But when faced with reality all by myself, as I was the first evening, when I was completely alone with not another human voice, not another human sound, I was suddenly overwhelmed with an unbelievable wave of despair and desolateness, because I felt all of a sudden, what's the use? And if the prognosis is not good, why even bother to try to do anything about it? If we had such a short time, I really should be home, spending that short time with my family and with my loved ones and doing what I really love to do, and that's being in my hometown, doing what I've been doing for several years. Then I fiddled around with a tape recorder. I happened to get a cassette on which the kids had recorded some absolutely awful Johnny Cash music. But the sound of the human voice just changed the whole situation for me. As soon as I played that music, even for a minute or two, my whole attitude changed and my perspective came back. And I felt, it is worth it. It is worth the fight. It was an absolutely desolate moment. I guess the other thing I thought was that loneliness is a terrible thing. And to die in loneliness must be the worst thing in the world. I will be very happy to have a year or 2 years and accept it very gratefully and very graciously. And I think that if everyone can look forward to a guaranteed year or two, which no one really can. I can walk out tomorrow and be hit by a car, killed in there. We have to preserve our quality of life, but make that quality of life available to a lot more people. And I think that's the greatest single challenge that faces us, because East Brunswick is a terrific community, but it's not a whole community at this point in the sense that I view that it represents society realistically. And I think that the drawing away that we do from our old people, from people who are ill, the inability of people to look me in the eye now, not knowing quite what to say because, you know, all they can say is, it's terrible. And they're almost embarrassed. They don't know how to say, boy, you know, I'll just die if I don't have that. And, you know, then one of the kids will say, yeah, you just might, you know. And so it's a constant kind of facing the reality of the situation with us. And all of a sudden, death has become a reality for an awful lot of people because they know Gene Walling. Many of them are very close to Gene Walling, and it's going to happen to somebody they know and they love. Don is going to be all right. He's dealing with it, and he's accepted it, and we've talked about what he's going to do after I die. You know, is he going to retire? And my feeling is he shouldn't retire. He should keep busy. But Don has always been a very self-sufficient human being, and I've always said he's an entity unto himself because, you know, he was a bachelor at 35 when we were married, and I kid him that he never really is changed from bachelorhood. It's just been a little more convenient to have somebody to pick up his dirty socks and look after him. And I think that there's going to be a tremendous sense of loss. But, you want to cut it, please? That's what I mean when I say emotions always rise very close to the surface. We've always kidded about who's going to outlast whom, and because he's so overweight, I've said, well, you know, I'll collect your insurance before you collect mine. In always the jesting kind of way that you do when you kid around until all of a sudden it's a reality. And you still kid, but the reality is never very far away. And I think he's had a very rough time these last couple months. And we are both enjoying so much our being out here because it is truly a vacation. Although, again, I have that niggling sense of I'm wasting time.
Most people live and die and never really participate in anything. They sort of live along in their house and know 3 neighbors and play bridge or go swimming, but in terms of participating in government or in anything, they could care less. Let the next guy do it. Well, Jean is the next guy who does it. Jean is eager to get back to the town and pick up where she left off. But I do think maybe for the first time in her whole life, she's thought a little about what should I do for Gene Walling. And I'm kind of thrilled with that.
I always did, but you're just beginning to learn.
Yeah.
I'm a slow teacher. This is our second honeymoon.
Yeah.
As long as she keeps well, we're going to have a honeymoon every single day and every week. That's the deal. That's one of the nice things about all this.
As long as you're living, you always have the hope that it really isn't happening. And the fact that I continue to feel so well. I described myself, when Dot and I were talking, when Jim and I were talking the other night, after I had read the physician's report of the discovery during the operation, I said, good heavens, I'm a physical Dorian Gray, you know, really. and yet, you know, I feel so good. And my feelings in terms of what's happening currently are no different. I just feel I'm being probably more honest with myself than I was being for a few days or a few weeks before I came out here. I just feel that for a while, I was believing that we could beat it, really. Probably always knowing in my heart that we couldn't, but now I'm willing to, you know, articulate my feeling that we're not going to beat it, you know, for very long. So that would be really great. Be fun.
Our kids would love this.
Yeah. It really is. It's really beautiful. Look how clearly you see the island.
I don't think there's anybody she didn't fool. She fooled her children, she fooled her husband, she fooled her friends. I did not want to believe anything but what she told me. I still don't.
She didn't say directly that she felt the time had come, but she made the point again that that it was fast approaching, that in fact she was tired, she was hurting, and it was time for her to place her energies in approaching her death.
She called the doctor herself and discussed the advisability of her going in. And when I arrived at the house, she was sitting on the side of the bed, and she had just gotten off the phone. And she said to me, Nikki, I have to go to the hospital.
I'm not going to be sad, and I'm not going to mourn. And we're not here to mourn anything. We're here to celebrate a life. And I will celebrate Jean Walling's life the rest of my life. And she'll never leave me. She'll always be with me. And that's my message to anybody who wants to hear what I have to say about Jean Walling.